Okay, good evening. We'll call this meeting to order at 6:33. And the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is correspondence and public comments. I have a list for people in house, so we'll start with them and then I'll open it up to people who are online. As per the norm, we'll do the 3-minute time limit. So first up is Tammy Underwood from Swanton.
Use that one, and this should pick up fine.
Yep.
This one will pick up?
Tall one.
Use the tall one?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to move it on? You can move
Nope,
it.
that's fine enough. Move it this way, I guess. Oh, it's kind of a weird spot, but,
Yeah, there you go. On that side better because you're closer to that on the mic.
okay. First, I'm going to read from some information that's entitled, "The CDC report admits that mask wearing provides no real protection against COVID." It's authored by more than a dozen medical doctors, PhD researchers, and attorneys, and the research found that wearing a mask or not wearing a mask produces roughly the same outcomes in terms of the number of cases and deaths blamed on the virus. Between March 1st and December 31st of last year, 2,313 of America's 3,142 counties were under a statewide mask mandate. County-by-county data shows a statistically insignificant difference in health outcomes between masked versus unmasked counties. According to the federal government agency that is responsible for managing the COVID-19 pandemic, the difference between mask mandates and no mask mandates is literally just 1.32%. And bear in mind, it's entirely possible that the real figure is even lower than that, given all the questionable COVID statistics. Considering seasonal flu vanished in 2020/2021, down 56 million compared to the season prior, the data would suggest that masked areas are actually more prone to disease spread. Is it possible that maybe, just maybe, at least some influenza cases have been misdiagnosed as COVID? If that's the case, then the real impact of masks on COVID growth rates is potentially much lower than the 1.32%. The CDC itself would appear to recognize this, admitting that the mask mandates merely have the potential, but not the science, to slow the spread of COVID-19. Masks have never been and never will be proven to provide any actual protection against the Wuhan flu. Even the corrupt CDC, a private corporation, mind you, was unable to twist the data in such a way as to even make it seem as though masks are anything other than a harm-inducing placebo. The agency was forced to admit that masks are little more than snake oil. Masks also cause gum disease, which increases coronavirus death risk by 900%. Not only that, but chronic mask wearing has led to a spike in rates of mental health issues and suicide. Depression, despair, and hopelessness are all hallmarks of mandatory mask policies. As far as forcing people to wrap their faces in Chinese plastic, it's abnormal, antisocial, and destructive.
20 seconds.
I'll just wait and let Caleb defer his minutes to me then.
Okay, go ahead.
The crazy thing about this virus is how easy it is for the state and its media to frighten the public and manipulate ill-formed citizens into embracing economic and social decapitation. We're now at a point of no return. The inflicted economic and social damage has already taken a heavy toll, and it will get worse the longer health bureaucrats, state governors, and a remarkably clueless president and his crazy demand the way we stay imprisoned in our homes, frightened of a bug that the state and its media have fictionally rendered as an insatiable and inescapable message of doom. In February of 2020, the World Health Organization, who's never known for its accuracy or its consistency, declared a pandemic for the coronavirus and claimed that the mortality rate for the novel disease was designated as COVID-19, and it was 3.4%, while that for the seasonal flu was 0.1%. For COVID-19, for example, they simply didn't count any of the mild cases of COVID-19 that resulted. The WHO were to apply the same formula to seasonal flu cases as it did to the COVID-19 cases, then the seasonal flu was revealed more truthfully as being twice as deadly as the COVID virus. It also serves as a cover for authoritarian measures the ruling elite have schemed to put in place for decades, measures designed to monitor and control everything that you do. The problem, I'm not going to have enough time to get into this, so I'll probably save it for my next meeting, because the next thing that I want to get into, and I'm going to have a lot more stuff with me next time, is going to be on some of the stuff that's being taught in the schools. And it is critical race theory. And I don't care how many times you want to tell people that it's not being taught in the school. I know for a fact that it is. And I'll probably be bringing the book with me that I found out was used in the school, because I ordered my own and I now have it and I've been going through it. And it's really making me upset. So that's probably going to be the next thing that I come in with next. And one paragraph that I did want to read is, when it comes to social emotional learning, the damage that it's doing to our kids is horrid. The problem is that children have emotions, but the government schools can't acknowledge that absolute truth and right and wrong exist, let alone what truth, right and wrong are. So we have a bunch of kids trained to embrace their feelings, and since feelings can't be right or wrong, society devolves into chaos. Feelings are more dangerous than ideas because they aren't susceptible to rational evaluation. They grow quietly, spreading underground, and erupt suddenly all over the place. It's not the kids' fault, but if society continues to erode into a soulless, violent nation full of mob-like citizens who only feel and react like barbarians and don't think like civilized people, we are all to blame. Traditional public schools, it's been decreed, don't have a place in teaching religion, morals, or anything that makes a strong, decent society. So we must ask ourselves, do they have a place in analyzing the feelings and emotions of students, or even in society at all? So when I come next week, I'm going to be talking about the critical race theory. I'm going to be talking about panorama and the origination of Castle, which is pushing this all on our kids. It's horrible, and you can't tell me that there aren't at least a couple of you that are watching right now that don't know the truth behind it, and yet you're still doing it. People are starting to figure it out, and it's not going to have a good outcome.
Thank you. Is there anybody online, if they would like to speak, or go ahead and raise your hand?
Seeing none, that concludes public comments. And we're on to agenda review. I have one under other business. We have the board goals committee update. That one we can just strike off. There isn't really an update because we haven't met. We will meet Monday. Julie, do you have any other amendments?
I do. We had the Highgate HVAC project contract addendum, and that contract is not yet prepared for us, so that will need to be at our February 1st meeting.
Okay, so we can table or strike the Highgate HVAC as well under old business. Okay, moving on to Cassette Agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 4th.
I'll make that motion. This is Terry.
Terry's first. Devin's a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting January 4th meeting minutes, raise your hand. Dawn, I haven't seen your vote. Okay, so motion carries 8-0. Guys are spread out more than normal, so it takes no longer to vote, count the votes. Okay, moving on to administrative reports. First up is MVU administration updates. So Dan and Jay.
I think actually I'm going to start us off tonight, and then I think, no, that's okay. And then I think Dan's going to pick up from there. Some highlights from the administrator's report from MVU. We have postponed our science fair. It was supposed to happen last week, and we have postponed it to February 5th, or excuse me, February 10th, and it's going to be at 5 p.m. in the Commons. We had to postpone it due to high numbers of absences from COVID. This will still allow our students enough time to participate in the state level competition. We had planned our Title I Parent Information Night for last week, and it was going to be in person, but we're moving to an online format, and that's going to be next week on the 27th at 6 p.m. And that is the required meeting that we have to share information with parents and families about Title I and how we use those funds. The course registration process has begun for next school year. The guidance department is working on their 9th grade orientation process. They're sending out a video to families soon so that 9th grade students can begin selecting classes for next year. Our rising seniors are going to begin registration next week, meeting with their school counselors and selecting the courses that they'd like to take so that we can use those requests to build the master schedule so that we can optimize the opportunities for students and have enough time to make schedule changes that will help all kids. This year, we're going to follow up on the success we had last year with some vacation camps. We have half dozen teachers who are willing to work part-time during February and April vacation to offer academic support for students. So we're building a referral form, and we're going to start finding students to come in for a little extra support during February vacation. We're looking forward to that. It worked really well last year, and we're hoping to build on that success for this year. And on Wednesday, February 2nd, we have been selected, a group of our 8th grade students have been selected to take the Nape Test, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which happens every other year. It was supposed to have happened last year, but we're off the cycle a little bit now. And some of our students will take a reading test and some will take a math test. And this is the test that the federal government uses to look at national progress in those two areas and look at states and compare them to each other. We will not be getting school results or individual student results for this test. And I'll pass it to Dan.
Thanks, Jen. I'm going to talk a little bit about the budget and some of the positions that we have added this year. Many of them using ESSER funds, but just to kind of talk a little bit about some of the positions that we have and the need for those positions. We did hire an additional full-time nurse this year to kind of handle the increase in COVID cases and phone calls and tracing that we've had to do this year. And that's been incredibly helpful. We used the ESSER funds to hire a math tutor. This position is currently unfilled. We had somebody in the position. We've actually had to relocate somebody that was in that position to fill in another position for us. And we have applied, well, we've actually advertised for this position, and it's been advertised for close to a month and a half now. And it's currently unfilled, but we continue to advertise and try to reach some math candidates to hopefully fill that. We also use the funds to hire a reading interventionist for small group instruction. So there's one for 7th grade and one for 8th grade. We also used to hire an athletic trainer full-time. A lot of that was to handle the return to play protocol as outlined by the state. We also hired a social worker this year. Melissa Gaudio works in the guidance office, who's currently seeing 60 plus students. When I talked to her earlier this week, I think it was currently about 66 students that she is seeing, which is great. We have some paraprofessionals that we have currently unfilled. We currently have 6 unfilled paraprofessional positions at MVU. But I will say that the increase in pay has kind of helped ed the flow of anybody kind of leaving that position. We currently have 1 special educator position, which is unfilled. All year long, we've had an ag and natural resource position, which has gone unfilled. Just not a lot of those candidates out there. Currently, we have a unfilled night supervisor, custodial supervisor position, which is unfilled. Jason Butler and I have held some interviews, but just hasn't kind of worked out yet. We also have 1 general custodial position, which is currently unfilled. We also hired 2 full-time building-based substitutes to kind of help with the lack of staff that we have. And they are currently busy every single day. Some of the other stuff that we had going on, of course, we had the holiday concerts back in December, which was a great time in the Trahan Theater under the direction of Danielle Turner and Aaron Garso. Both nights were very well attended by families in the community. We had the school musical, which is going on right now, under the direction of a MVU graduate, Miriam Booty, along with teachers Casey Hansen, Danielle Turner, and Aaron Garso. The show this year is going to be Mary Poppins, which should take place in, I believe that's April. We are currently going to, like a lot of activities right now, the high school semi-formal. We are currently postponing that. We're looking at possibly late March or into April. And that's our report. Any questions?
Seeing none, thank you very much.
Chris?
Oh, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I was just trying to unmute. I don't know if it goes to Dan or to Julie, but I'm pleased to hear that we hired an extra nurse because I know that the demands have been such, but is this a position that if we ever get back to what was normal, that the person's aware we might eliminate? Or do you see that an ongoing need for this position after COVID, if it's such a thing?
Right. Right now, we are using grant funds for that. We have a plan in place to keep that position by making adjustments and using Medicaid funding in the future. So we do have a plan for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for MVU? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we'll move on to the Humanitarian Heads. And I think we'll start in Swanton with Chris Dodge.
Hi, everybody.
And Justina.
Awesome. So just a few things in addition to the written report that I gave you. We're planning a really exciting summer opportunity for students, a couple of exciting opportunities, actually. We learned that the summer program through Crossroads is going to expand from 4 weeks to 5 weeks this summer. So we're really excited about that additional opportunity for students. We're also getting ready, working on a summer reading challenge for our students. So I've been working with Laura to secure some funding to purchase books for every student in our building. And we're working on some really strong literacy connections for that project to stay engaged with students over the summer. So we're really excited about that. And speaking of books, we were really excited today to receive this book, which you can't see because it's blurry on the screen, but it says Vermont Abenakis, A Brief History of the People. And we received 20 copies of this book from Jeff Benet this morning. So we were excited to have copies of that for our libraries and for our teachers to have in their classrooms as another way to connect our instruction with the Native people of Swanton. So we're really happy about that. I want to just take a quick second to really just thank the staff at Swanton for their flexibility during the difficult staffing time. We do a pretty constant shuffling of both paraeducators and professional staff. And we've had some difficult conversations recently, but overwhelmingly folks are just so flexible and understanding and willing to go where they're needed. So just a shout out to the staff, because it's a challenging time and they're really rising to the occasion there. We made our transition recently from test to stay at school in the morning for students to providing take-home antigen tests. So we've moved that testing for the most part into homes in the morning. And that, like test to stay, continues to allow us to keep students in school when they're healthy and able to be in school. So we're excited about continuing to have more students in the building through the testing at home program that replaced test to stay. I wanted to just mention that we're going to be starting some work with a Pbis coach soon. Pbis is Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, and it's our system at Swanton for establishing expectations for a respectful, responsible, and safe community. And we're talking about some professional development in the future during in-service in the fall, but bringing our Pbis coach in during the remainder of this year a couple of times a month to do some classroom embedded professional development and coaching with teachers. And we have some folks that are really excited about that work. We have a couple of family engagement opportunities that are coming up that we're planning that we're really excited about. We held our Title I Parent Night on Tuesday of this week and spoke with parents about how we spend our Title I federal grant funding, and are working with them on getting some feedback on things that they might like to see in addition to what we're doing now. And we also take that opportunity when we talk about Title I to review our homeschool compact, which is a document that kind of spells out the strategies that students will use, families will use, and the school will use to make sure that all of our learners are successful. So that goes through a revision process every year, and we're in the process of working with families to revise that now. We're looking forward to having our math and literacy Title I night in the spring as well, and we're planning for that. And one of the exciting pieces about Title I and those types of events is that we're able to offer families some learning and development on how they can support their students at home, and then send them home with some materials that they can use to reinforce those skills with their learners at home. So that's a real positive. We're also planning on having the Echo Leahy Center return to Swanton and return. They were here virtually before, but come to Swanton in the spring and do an in-person STEM night for our families. So we're really excited and in the planning stages of that. The last couple of things I'd like to mention are just some student leadership opportunities that have come up recently that are really exciting. I held my third meeting this week with my student leadership group. I think I've told folks before that it was really important for me to meet with students on my very first day at Swanton on July 1st. So Justina worked with me in advance of my arrival to set up a team that has representation from 3rd through 6th grade. And we are talking about some community service work that we can do to involve students with the community and support some folks that are close by but not on campus. So that's an exciting piece for our students. I also recently had 2 6th grade students that participated in the hiring process for our physical education long-term substitute. This is work that I've done for a number of years now, including students on hiring committees. And it's a really exciting opportunity. These students from 6th grade worked with me to review the applications of folks that came in. That really involves some higher order conversations about evaluating those applications and thinking about who you want to interview. They wrote questions with me, and then they sat in on the interview process with the rest of the adults on that committee and were actively engaged in asking questions. Those students also observed the model lesson that teacher came to school to teach, and then joined the group for the conversation after to make a decision about forwarding that candidate to the superintendent. So I think a really powerful opportunity for our students to engage in that. So like Dan, I just want to mention a few things regarding the budget that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on as they relate to Swanton. So some of the major things that have that are in this draft of the budget for Swanton are changing our library structure to include 2 professional librarians and not including the same support staff members that we have historically had in those roles. And the goal there really is to increase high quality instruction in the library and to offer some additional opportunities for students with a licensed teacher or licensed librarian to really promote that literacy instruction and make connections to what's going on in the classroom. We also have a couple of on-staff substitutes that we've been using this year, where we were really happy to add a person just earlier this week that's going to be joining us soon in those positions, and we've asked for those to continue. They really do play a critical role in our staffing. And when we have folks in our building regularly as substitutes, that consistency, both related to academics and to knowing our culture and our climate systems, really supports students. So we were pleased to be able to put those in this draft of the budget. I want to take just a quick second to really thank the board. Your priority in thinking about the funding of staff members and increasing the pay of support staff and thinking about that through your negotiations process that's ongoing really promotes the retention of our staff, of our high quality staff. And so I just wanted to let the board know how much we appreciate that that has been a priority for you. And thank you for that. So I guess just ending, I would say that it's been a good budget process for us. I've really appreciated in our meetings with Laura and Julie and my conversations with Kosha, that the focus really is on instruction and instructional leadership. And that's been an overarching theme that I've really noticed since I've come to this district. And so I've appreciated really being able to focus my attention on instructional priorities and then really have the support of Laura and Julie and others to work those things into the budget. So our priorities that Justina and I have set for Swanton are absolutely reflected in that budget draft, and we appreciate that so much. So I'm happy to answer any questions. That was a lot of information.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Swanton? Devin.
Chris, I just want to say that I think that's incredible that you gave the kids the opportunity to be part of that interview process. I know we can't do that with all our positions, but doing it where you can is great. I noticed you didn't say the name of the person that was hired. Is that public information at this point?
Yeah, it sure is. His name is Matthew. His name is Matthew Luno, and he's previously worked in our district as a long-term substitute at MVU. So he was a bit of a known entity to us.
Yeah, and I know him from childhood basketball camps. And he was excellent then, and I'm sure he's still excellent now. So it's good to hear.
Any other questions for Swanton? Seeing none, thank you very much. I just noticed Steve Scott joined, so I made a mistake on the vote count for the January 4th minutes. It was actually 7-0. Sorry about that. So moving on to, we'll go with Highgate and Yeshua.
All right, great. Thank you, Chris. So I kind of start out my board report kind of highlights. We are, as well as Swanton has, we're slowly transitioning out of test to stay and sending test kits home. We had some lingering classes this week, and one of them was kind of a repeat. I usually help in the morning by manning the computer. So the nurse will be doing some stuff. I man the computer so the results get to families. And I always jokingly say to the kids, "Oh, you're here for the old swabby." And I had one kindergartner who walked in and said, "Mr. Pastina, I'm here for the swabby," which I thought was awesome. It was cute. Of course, she's just repeating what I have probably told her to say, but I thought it was adorable. I also like Chris. I want to say a huge thank you to Highgate staff. Julie had a text from me the Sunday night before break that said, "Dear God, if I have one person that calls out, I don't know what I'm going to do." And people just stepped up at Highgate. And when I asked interventionists to cover a classroom, or I asked a special educator, I mean, everybody realizes that the best for our kids is to be in person. And I just can't thank them enough. We really have had people all over the place, but they've done it with a smile on their faces. They know, again, it's what's best for kids. So I really want to thank the entire staff for helping out. If you have not heard, we did, unfortunately, with the cold weather, have a pipe that burst, and that did create some water in our elementary wing. And I just really want to thank Scott Martin, because he has put in countless hours. And honestly, the poor guy looks exhausted, but he comes in every day and helps out. He's also had a custodian who's down because they are sick. And he has really worked hard and gotten all the contractors, cleaned up all the water. I mean, he just knew what to do with this situation. And so I think we would have been worse off if he hadn't have known how to handle all of this. And of course, Laura and Julie, I mean, Laura immediately was like, I called and Impacted Insurance, here you go. And so with everybody's help, I really appreciate that, because a pipe that burst is a new one for me. So I appreciate everybody's help to make sure we got through that. I don't know if everybody got a chance to see the Messenger's newspaper article on Tuesday, which we were very fortunate to have one of our teachers and students featured on the front cover. And it was a wonderful article about the experience in education right now. And I thought the reporter, whose name is Kate, did a really nice job of interviewing folks and kind of giving an understanding of what it's like for schools, and a great story of how we're doing everything we can to support kids and to support one another during this time. So if you haven't seen it, let me know. I bought like 5 copies, and I'd be happy to send one your way, because it really was wonderful. I also want to thank Laura and Julie on getting NK95 masks, because that was the CDC recommendation, and teachers had asked us about it, and I think they were right on it and got masks for us even without me asking. And we actually got those today. And I know some teachers and staff are really excited to have that extra layer of protection. So I appreciate that. We also did have our in-service day recently, which was wonderful. We had some great professional learning to continue our writing curriculum work based on Leah Murmelstein. We also had a great freckle training, which is, we can use it, right now we use it for math. It's an online program, but we got to just ask questions and really dive into what freckle actually is and what it can do, which was an entire district, which was great. We also had some great data time to sit together in teams and look at data and make some informed instructional decisions, which was, again, we always a great use of our time at in-service. To add on to the other principles, I just want to put in there about, we're going to have this budget discussion and kind of what budget supports that I feel have been made to support the focus I have for Highgate and its vision. We were able to hire a nurse assistant, which has been an absolute godsend for us. I think because of the size of Highgate, when you add all this COVID stuff, it just makes Jen's job a lot harder, because there's all this extra things she has to do. And it's been wonderful to have this nurse assistant who can come in and help us contact trace, or previously, and then maybe go up to Swanton if they needed more help, or head over to Franklin if they needed more help. So it's been really nice to have that position, because I think it's just really supported our nurses and making them feel like they can get everything done without feeling like it's impossible to get it done during the day. Similar to what other people have said, we do have a full-time substitute, which we are absolutely grateful for. I don't know if anyone's met Bernie Tremblay, who is the person, but he is a willing to do anything kind of person, and he cares for kids deeply. And he is one of those that we feel like we can put him in any classroom or space and he will do a fine job. So we're very fortunate for that. We've also supported, we have a large kindergarten class, which ironically I have 2 enrollments for again this week. And so we're now up to nearly, I think, 44 or 45 kids in kindergarten. So we're going to have 3 classrooms in first grade next year to support those students transition. We probably will not be having a 3rd classroom every single year, but I think this additional year of having a 3rd classroom will support them as they probably enter into 2 classrooms potentially for 2nd grade, but we'll see how things go throughout the course of next school year and the rest of the school year. We also are going to make the art position up to 100%. We are really trying to focus on project-based learning and integrating that in specifically our upper grades. And we find it really hard to manage we've made a schedule and we try to make it work, but if there's not one person who's manning it and supporting teachers, it's just not very successful. So we're going to have the art position to be 80% art and 20% project-based learning. We also added a student management person to our team, which we didn't know at the time how behaviors were going to be, but it was very helpful to have this position who can solely support in 6th grade, because we do see our highest need there behaviorally. We also have increased our tech coordinator to be full year instead of just full time in about 200 and some odd days. That way he can now really focus on technology integration and how we're, in the education side of technology, not just technology support. And we'll have some various trainings and courses that he will take to help him do that work. And I think also we've just done a lot with kind of just instructional resources. So we've gotten extra interactive boards and put them like some areas in the white building and in the cafeteria to expanded learning spaces if needed. We've also updated libraries based on student interest and need, because we have some libraries that have not been updated in a long time in our classrooms, and just various instructional resources for SEL, like Second Step, which is an online curriculum that can help support that SEL learning in various grades. And of course, instructional resources for our instructional framework. And kind of like Chris, that was a lot, but I wanted to get everything out there. So if you have any questions, definitely let me know.
Any questions for Highgate? Seeing none, thank you very much, Yeshua.
Thank you.
And of course, we'll move on to Franklin and Joyce.
Okay, I'm going to start with a few things right before vacation. And I have to say, that seems like a really, really long time ago right now. I am not going to sugarcoat it. These last couple of weeks, I would say have been the most difficult in the whole year and maybe in the last year and a half. It's been so many more cases of COVID everywhere, and the confusion with the guidelines. And again, as Chris and Yeshua said, just kudos to everybody for pitching in and doing whatever needed to be done. But it really has been a tough couple of weeks. And I know I am usually the cup is a half full person, and I still am, but I have been saying all the time lately, spring is coming because I need to keep telling myself that. So I think every day it's going to get better, and the days are lighter out at the end of the day. So, but it has been a tough couple of weeks. So looking back to before vacation, there was just some really nice things that happened prior to vacation. I was so proud of Jen McConnell and the kids with their concert. I did put a link to the concert in there, and the concert was dedicated to Dylan Bushy's memory. And I was just so happy that Jen and the kids wanted to still do a concert, even though we decided just to be safe to keep it virtual. And they did a really nice job. I also want to thank Tim Magnet for helping us do our traditional wagon rides around town to wish everybody happy holidays. And he didn't have to do it 14 times like he did last year because of physical distancing. So I think he was kind of happy about that. But it's just always a wonderful time to go out and see everybody in the community. Also, right before the holidays, and we kind of continued it afterwards, was our George Raynach Hour of Code, where kids were learning some of the basics of coding. And it was really special this year because they were able to use some resources that George's family had donated to the school. And that was just really nice. Also, I put in a couple of pictures of the MVSD t-shirts, and thank you there. And because everybody just was so appreciative of that. It was just a really nice thing to have that right before the holidays also. The third grade continued a long running tradition of presenting the Polar Express. And we were so happy this year with their Readers Theater being able to be presented again to other classes. And so we did still use the gym to spread everybody out, but they were able to have an audience again, and they worked so hard on those reading and presentation skills. And so that was really nice. And of course, they love to go to school that day in their PJs and spread a little holiday cheer too. And they also use microphones. And that's one thing that has come out of the the pandemic is using microphones for our presentations. And that's just been a really, really good benefit, because before I would feel so badly when kids work so hard on these presentations and you couldn't hear what they were saying sometimes. And so it's been great. And it's a really good skill for them to know how to use a microphone and how to do those presentations. We also finally got to have our first ski day for the first time in a year and a half. And we had 47 kids go skiing and almost as many chaperones. I felt like we had 25 chaperones, most of whom are parents, and also some grandparents and some community members. And so that was just really wonderful last week. And in service, always just, I want to use every second of that day. The full day in January is going halfway through the year. I feel like it's just the best time to really, where are we at with our action plan? What have we accomplished? What have we not accomplished? And really looking at that plan, looking at all of our data and making sure that if we need to make some adjustments to some services. And so we did that. We spent quite a bit of time looking at our data, looking at our action plan. We looked at the MVSD recovery plan. We started looking at our recommendations for our multi-tiered systems of support, the audit recommendations. As Yeshua mentioned, we did the freckle training. Just had a really good discussion yesterday around some of the things that teachers want to do as a result of some of that freckle training. And we also, well, we wanted to share on Monday some science resources, but because we had to be virtual, we ended up doing some of that yesterday. But we just used that time just so productively. So I'm so thankful for that full in-service day in January. Quick facilities update. The new hot water heater was installed over vacation. All of the inspections were done around the new boiler system. So that was terrific. Some upcoming things, Jen DeSorger mentioned Nape is also done in the 4th grade. Our 4th graders are having that next Friday. We have a half a day in service coming up in February 4th, which I'm looking forward to already. And also we've got Spirit Week coming up, and that's just always a really great week. So at the last board meeting, I think Devin had asked about was what we needed in the budget for next year. And of course, we'd already thought a lot about that, and I really appreciated being asked that. But I have to say, it made me really happy in a way, but also really sad, because I was happy because I don't think there's anything more right now I could say that we need to have added to next year's budget. The things that were added last year that were paid by ESSER and some in the budget, you know, are some additional tutoring, additional counseling services, gosh, the nursing services, you know, all of those things, and maintaining those is needed. But there's really nothing big new in the next year's budget for Franklin. And that made me happy that what we need is in there. But what made me sad was that what we really need right now is for kids and teachers to be in school every day consistently for that instruction. And we can't buy it. You know, we can't put it in the budget. And that's what made me sad, because it's frustrating right now, because that's what we need. But I so appreciate, you know, being asked and you guys wanting to know if everything that we need is there. And you have been, as people already said, just so supportive. You know, the masks, just doing that right off without anybody asking, you know, even if people didn't want to switch to N95 masks, they appreciated it. So that was just, and like some of the positions that like were added last year to the budget, or where the ESSER, like a full-time substitute, we haven't filled that position, but I know we'll still keep trying. But it just, thank you for all you've done and all of your support, and just help us get kids there every day. And teachers is what we need right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Any questions for Franklin? Seeing none, that concludes our elementary administrative reports. Thank you all. And continuing on, we have Superintendent and Central Office newsletter and report.
So, as people have mentioned, we have had a very busy January coming back to changing guidance and increased cases, and whether we have shipments of tests coming in to send out to families. And that's been a big piece of the work the last few weeks. People can always go and see the latest updates on our website. We have the other very big piece of work, obviously, is the budget. Having town halls, preparing drafts of the budget, working with principals on the videos that we'll be producing over the next month to inform each community about changes at MVU and at our local elementary schools, as well as the budget as a whole. We'll be planning for the St. Albans Messenger. We'll be doing an insert for us, as we did last year, that explains the budget. Laura has been working and ensuring that each of us write our piece for the town report, for the school district rather, report that will be available soon, going to the printers shortly. And then likely, Kate, who is on this call, I will ask to see if we can do an interview as we get closer to town meeting day and discuss our budget and see if that will happen as well. In preparing for the school district report, I typically show our enrollment in each of our schools. It is not the rolling enrollment that changes all the time, but we always look at October 1st enrollment, which is that number that gets sent into the state and becomes our average daily membership, which then turns into a weighted 2-year average for equalized pupils. And you can see that in my report there. We actually have increased overall a few students. And I think, and we've certainly shown ourselves to be quite stable. We did have a reduction in our state average. I think that is definitely a result of temporary COVID. We've seen students coming back from homeschooling or moving into our district over this past year. We only anticipate that to stabilize and increase. And, you know, Chris, we've had a lot of principal reports right now, but we do have our central office administrators, and I don't know if you want to take, I don't know, 3 minutes from them so that they can give a quick update on their section of the report.
Absolutely.
All right, so I guess the first one here is Kosha.
Hello, everyone. This time when I was writing my board report, I was thinking I've got to have a theme. And so I chose to write about collaboration because I know how important collaboration is in my role as curriculum director. And we've been really fortunate in this district that we've had very strong collaboration with some experts in their own field. So I put a little bit about Leah Murmelstein and how she started working in our district when we were Franklin Northwest over 10 years ago. And she came back to us and has been doing some phenomenal embedded professional development in both Highgate and Franklin this year. And from what I'm hearing from everyone, the teachers are really excited about having her come in. And she literally gets down on the floor and sits with the kids and shows teachers how writing can be engaging and exciting and how you get kids really hooked on to writing, which is such a critical skill. And so that has been going really well. We've been lucky to fund having her in our district every month, working with our 2 elementary schools through our ESSER2 funding. So last year, because writing took a big hit when we went fully virtual, it was really difficult for teachers to teach little kids who barely know how to hold a pen or pencil to be able to write. And so with this embedded coaching, we are really hoping that our writing instruction will improve a lot. Our second collaboration I talked about was with Tina Bugren, who is a nationally known consultant with Marzano Resources. She has specialized in not just Marzano's art and science of teaching and the framework for instruction, but her latest passion is supporting beginning teachers. And she recognizes how the pandemic has made it so much more difficult for people to enter this profession. And so she's absolutely passionate about supporting our new teachers. We were lucky enough to have her come back to us in person this year and work with our new teachers on January 5th. And again, talking about collaboration, this is more than 7 years that she's been with us. So we are really grateful to continue having Tina come and work with our new teachers. And then finally, I talk about our collaboration with ECHO. Chris mentioned we had ECHO last year come in and do a virtual parent event in Highgate and Swanton. And this year they're going to come back actually next week, I think in the next few weeks, and work with, we have 4 teachers in K1 who volunteered to partner with them. We have a teacher from Swanton, we have 1 from Highgate and 2 from Franklin. And they are literally coming in, they got grant funded to provide this professional development. So they're collaborating with us, doesn't cost us anything. And they literally come and work with the teachers and bring STEM material and get the kids to do hands-on learning. So that was my theme. And I am truly grateful, not just for the collaboration with all these experts in the field, but in my day-to-day work, I'm constantly collaborating with my central office folks, my principals, my coaches, and of course the board. And I truly appreciate that. I know I could not be effective without all this collaboration. So thank you very much.
Sorry, I was unmuted and I was muted. I think that Bonnie, did you want to just say any updates from your?
Sure, thank you. So one of the big things for our employees was the side letter that the board signed, increasing their wages. We approved it on a Thursday and we had addendums out to all staff before they went on break for the following week. So we issued 130 contract addendums to our staff with overwhelming response. People were overjoyed, some were in tears. So really grateful to the board for doing that for them. It was a huge step. So that went into place for this past payroll. So this week has been rather busy as payroll and I made sure that that was all set and ready to go into people's checks for tomorrow. This time of year, we spend a lot of time just reconciling the end of the calendar year and getting things set up for the next calendar year. Our spring is incredibly busy and we anticipate a busier than normal hiring season as we still throughout the district have 21 open full-time positions, and that's not including what will be coming for next year. So we are anticipating that, so trying to get some work done early as far as contracts and things like that, the prep work that we have to do so that when that time comes, I imagine that the way the nationwide hiring situation is that we're going to want to be on the top of our game this year. So I think I have the least exciting report. So that is pretty much all I have right now. So thank you.
Tanya, I think you're next in the list.
Okay. So as I indicated in the report, we are still on track.
Okay, here I go.
Can you do it in a row?
We're on track for implementation of the new special ed rules starting in July, and we've talked about that a few times. And so what I've been focusing on is participating in the Agency of Education trainings or webinars that come out quite frequently, every couple of weeks or so, a new topic. And then sort of summarizing that information, making it make sense for us, and then sharing that with special educators. So we're getting this slow rollout of what the changes are, and hoping that towards spring, the agency will support us with more in-depth training for what each of those kind of rule changes means. A lot of folks are taking advantage of some of the more regional professional development opportunities around some of the changes, school psychologists, special educators in specific areas that are changing. So that's one big piece that's on the radar and continuing. And the other big thing is kind of like what everyone's kind of spoken about a little bit is, the staffing changes and shortages and that sort of thing. And so what that means for special education and students with IEPs is that our teams are having to meet maybe more frequently than would be typical in order to amend those IEPs or look at how are we continuing to meet the needs of children, even though we may not have the staff that we're used to having. So the shift has really been, and the push has been around looking specifically at children's needs, because those things don't go away. So looking at how do we get creative or find different strategies that maybe we have never utilized before in order to meet that specific need. So it may not always be that we have access to a paraeducator, but we may have access to an instructional, a literacy interventionist, or it's sometimes working special educator in collaboration with a teacher to implement some strategies. So it's really pushed us to be creative and kind of stretch the bounds of the practices that we're used to and what we can do for kids. So that's the bulk of a lot of work that's happening right now with those teams. And I think those are the two big things I would say that are happening in the world of special education.
So Robert, thank you, Tina. Sorry. Robert, I know that you want to do a presentation at another time, but do you want to touch briefly?
I sure do. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Normally you don't need to see me, and normally I have my mask on, so I apologize for that. But I'm in this room all by myself here, and you get to see me maskless. So technology, everything is changing, obviously, but in technology, I actually like change, and most technology folks do. But the number of positional changes that we've had have been just astronomical. And so I just want to give a rundown of the changes that MVSD has seen with technology in the 6 months or so, last 6 or 7 months. First of all, Sylvia Gagne has accepted a position, is moving into a systems management position. And I'm pretty sure I can mute Dan Palmer so he can't comment on the fact that we took her away from MVU. And Dan isn't quite convinced that MVU gets stronger with that addition because Sylvia is in the building, although she now has a responsibility to support the elementary schools with their systems needs, everything from HVAC and video surveillance to Google admin setups and software issues, those kinds of things. So really happy to have Sylvia on board. Rusty Gregory is our data manager, has been for a few years. In Franklin, we have Kathy Ovitt, who does both the coordinator position and support position. Kathy's been there for a number of years. Highgate is a new hire with Caleb Cattell, coordinator and support person. Rich Ballard started this year as working 1 period a day to teach tech integration at Highgate, which is a nice add. In Swanton, Jen Mitchell is a newly hired tech integration. She's a longtime Swanton elementary 6th grade teacher. Craig Davis joins her as a coordinator support person. He just started in October along with Caleb. And back to MVU, we just hired, and he started today actually, Cody Fernald. He's a Vermonter that was he was in Colorado for a number of years, and he's back in Vermont. Glad to have him on board with Josh Bordeaux. Josh is the tech support person. Cody's the coordinator. And I mentioned Rich Ballard before. So just a quick rundown of those folks. And I just want to say just a quick difference between support and coordinator. A support person is who comes running when somebody cries help, and the coordinator is who tries to keep those help calls to a minimum. So really that's the big difference in planning and pre-zip. So yeah, a lot of other changes, but those are the big highlights that I wanted to share.
Thank you, Robert. Now, Beth Ann is not able to be here this evening, but you see her report, and I know she would be very happy to answer any questions if you wanted to send her an email. For me, my favorite thing is the picture of Ernie Hemingway doing some dancing with kids in Highgate for their theater presentation. That just warms my heart. And I think last of all, we would have, but not least, of course, is Wendy Cunningham.
Thank you. So you can see the updates in the report. I do want to open with the same sentiment that many of the administrators shared tonight, and that is just tremendous gratitude for the professionals in our program. From the teachers, service providers, support staff. Thank you, board, for supporting that increase for our support staff. We really couldn't be doing what we're doing without them. We've been experiencing many of the same challenges that K through 12 have with student illness, staff shortages, and really these professionals come together and really at the end of the day, make it so that we can continue to serve our youngest learners in our program. We have some collaborations happening. Kosha talked about the importance of collaboration, and we have some collaboration going. And like Kosha, I just really appreciate these experts working with our team. We are working with the Pyramid 802 Plus group to do practice-based coaching with our 5 classroom teachers across the district. This is ensuring the implementation of the pyramid model, and that's what we know supports our students best, that strong foundation. We are also working with Scott Noyes from Empowering Programs. Scott is working with our support staff on some training topics that they were able to provide input and say what they wanted to learn more about. And we just had our first session with Scott with the support staff, and they chose intentional language and thinking about the words we use with children. And we got to spend some time together with Scott and talk about 12 phrases that you may sometimes use with a child, and just dive deeper into why you may want to consider maybe using something else. Or Scott will also be coming back 3 more times with our support staff. And after the first training, they are really excited for him to come back. One of the support staff at the end of that, this is how you know it was a good training. The support staff person said, that went by really, really fast. And so they're really excited to have Scott back, and looking forward to that as well. We are also bringing Scott to the community for 3 evening workshops for families and those who care for young children. A survey will be going out to families for them to provide input on what topics interest them most. Everything from establishing healthy nighttime routines to raising enduringly happy children. There's a variety of topics, and I can't wait to see which ones the families indicate they are most interested in and bringing those. I'm going to close by just saying, with all of these challenges that are going on, I am in the classroom a lot, and I'm really excited to say that I'm seeing a lot of the same things that I've seen in early childhood over the years. Children sitting together, enjoying their lunch together, telling their preschool jokes. And if you haven't heard a preschool joke lately, you really should listen to a preschooler tell a joke, because they are just hilarious. Up in Franklin in Mrs. Dewing's classroom, she's into her pirate theme right now, which is just incredible. And today I was there, and children were using catapults to launch little pom-poms and tying in the science and the physics. And there's laughter, there's children talking together, learning how to work together, learning how to negotiate sharing. So while there are challenges, there's a lot of really great things happening in preschool, and appreciate the board's support, the support of my fellow administrator colleagues, the support of our administrative assistant back at the home office holding down the fort, making sure we've got people where we need them each and every day. So that's the update from pre-K.
Thanks, Chris. I knew that was a little longer, but I knew it's been a while. So thanks for giving us the time.
Thank you. Is there any questions for central office? Seeing none, that concludes administrative reports, and we'll move on to new business. And first up under new business is FY23 budget discussion and adoption.
Okay, so if you can believe it, we're on draft 6 and hopefully finalizing our fiscal year 23 budget tonight. We've been working through different drafts since October. And I think a lot of great information and items have made their way into this budget. And I think that we heard a lot of great feedback about the specifics and how we're supporting schools tonight. Overall, this draft from last time really hasn't changed that much. If you'll notice in the shared drive, I did not share a note page, and that's why. Basically, there were just a few small changes made due to department budgets coming in from MVU. Many of them were pretty level funded, but some did have some shifts. That does include all the different departments, as well as the principal's office, technology, nursing, health ed, guidance. And so overall, it's up about $50,000 this draft from last time. But again, it's kind of spread out within those MVU department budgets and a few other small adjustments. I also included, I think there was some interest at the last meeting and then via emails from several board members in regards to additional FTE information, as well as maybe some more school specific information. So once again, I did share that fiscal year 23 expense and FTE by location. It's quite a wide spreadsheet. But it does give you a comparison of FTEs for salaries and benefits by function, and then some larger buckets on the bottom by location, like transportation, purchase services, supplies and equipment, tuition, debt service, and transportation. But it does break down the salaries and benefit information on the top by FTE compared to what was budgeted last year versus what we're budgeting or proposing this year in the budget draft that you have in front of you. So hopefully that is helpful. Typically, we do include that information in our PowerPoint presentations and our marketing materials that we use over the next couple of months as well. So overall, this budget now represents a $41,050,423 budget. That's up about $2,396,947 from last year's budget. That represents an increase of 6.2%. So Chris, I guess I'm just looking for consideration of that final proposal.
Chris, I'd like to make a comment.
Chris, you're muted.
Whoops, sorry about that. I didn't get to all those numbers. You can
okay.
Say them one more time.
Okay, so the budget amount is $41,050,423. That is do you want the increase and such?
Yeah.
That's an increase of $2,396,947, which is an increase of 6.2%. I will remind folks, I guess it's just a good time if there might be some listeners at this meeting that haven't been on attendance in other meetings, that that does include most ESSER funded true positions at this point. And there is offsetting revenue on the revenue side, which we'll take into account in a few minutes when we talk about tax rate. But I just wanted to remind this group and others that that does include those increases as well, which the intent is to reallocate or shift or cover those with other revenue sources in future years. But we wanted to make sure to include them in our expenses.
Laura, could you say that increase amount one more time? I think what you said doesn't quite match what's on the page.
$2,396,947.
Oh, the sheet we have in the drive says $2,396,447.
4,050,423 from 38,653. Hold on one second. Are you looking at the budget draft? The actual budget draft?
6, yep. I'm just scrolling right down to the bottom.
38,653,476, 23, 2,396,947. Well, Excel is not working in one of those places, so I'm not sure why. Hold on. Because it's the same math on both of them. Three, 8, 6, 5, 3, 4, 7, 6.
The good news is it's not a lot of money.
No, it's not. 38, 6, 5, 3, 4, 7, 6. And to be honest with you, I stopped looking at the numbers to the far right. When you talk in the millions, you don't pay attention to the hundreds anymore. 2,395,493. It's pulling from the same exact place.
So Laura, is the estimated revenue and tax rate draft 6, does that have your updated numbers in them?
It does, and they look like the same numbers, so I'm not sure why Excel is pulling two different differences between the same two numbers. So I need to look at that a little more, I guess.
Looks like the 947 that you said is correct.
Is the correct number.
Yeah.
I was just trying to fix it on your page as well, but yeah, it's the 940s, the number that I said. So there must be just something quirky happening, maybe with rounding coming down. If she's pulling the totals from the far column, maybe the rounding is coming into play. But yes, 2,396,947, which is represented on the tax rate page, and you can see the same two numbers there that are represented on the last page of your the budget proposal.
Okay, so at this time, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the FY23. What's that, Don?
I'd asked for a question, but I don't think you heard me.
I was going to get the motion first and then
Okay,
open it for discussion.
That's great. I'll make that motion.
I hadn't said it yet. Hang on. So at this time, I'm entertaining a motion for FY23 budget of $41,050,423, which is an increase of 6.2%. And it's an increase of $2,396,497 from last year's. Don's the first. Devin's the second. And discussion. Go ahead, Don.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank everybody that worked real hard on the budget. But I especially want to thank the administrators tonight who took the time to go through and tell us the needs for their school that are in the budget. You know, we merged, then we got the pandemics. Seems like they're continuous pandemic. And at times as a school board member, I've really felt that the magnitude of the budget for the merger and then the pandemic has at times kind of left us in the dark on what's going on. I don't think it's intentional. I know everybody has good intentions, but tonight have the administrator saying, this is what we're going to get if we get this in the budget. I found very helpful to me. And the other thing I found very helpful, even though I know it was challenging to put together, was last month we went through, or last meeting went through the budget. In previous years where we've said, if you have any questions, send them in or ask people, that works only to the extent that one person has a question and then has an answer. So I like the idea that everybody could go through, and if there were questions, everybody heard the answer. So I just want to commend everybody, and I think more and more we're getting more transparent with our budget. I think the board is becoming more knowledgeable, and to me, that's extremely important. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Devin.
Are we able to show the tax rate estimation information? Because I think we just talked about some big increases.
Oh,
You froze, Devin, but I can pull that up and share it on the screen if that's helpful. I was hoping that was going to be the next step. Would you like me to do that, Chris, or hold on for Devin? I think he's still
No.
frozen on my screen.
No, go ahead. That's good information.
and Laura, I think my question is the board folder, estimated tax rate and revenue has the, yeah. I think that needs to be updated.
No, it doesn't. It's just going back to what his question was. It's really a matter of, it's off like a few $100s, and it's a rounding issue because we're adding vertically in my giant budget. And so each Excel is off probably a few cents, and it's causing that at the bottom. But the what you see on the tax rate page I'm going to share is the correct exact math. Okay, can you see that? Is it big enough?
No.
No? Okay.
Sorry, I got kicked off there.
I think you were looking to see the tax rate information, Devin?
Yeah, I was just because we have the other pieces that flow into the final calculation with the property tax yield and the common level of appraisal. Even though, you know, we're talking about a 6.2% increase on the projected expenditures, if we just go right down to the bottom line on here, the total estimated impact on taxes, you see there at the bottom with a increase in Franklin of 2 cents per hundred, and Highgate of less than 2 cents, and in Swanton we're actually anticipating a decrease in property taxes. So the highest increase here is a 1.45% for Franklin, and then there's a 1.3% roughly increase in Highgate, and Swanton has a decrease of 0.45%. So I want to make sure that's out there and very clear that that's the estimated impact because of some of the other factors.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that part up. I mean, our equalized tax rate is a decrease. It's just that the CLA this year is particularly challenging as home sales and values are increasing across the state of Vermont and in our 3 communities as well.
And Julie, I apologize. You are correct. This is the wrong version. I think Becky uploaded an incorrect version. Let me put the new one in right now.
Okay. The tax rate information did not change in this version, did it?
Sorry, I can't raise my hand, Miss Terry, but I wanted to say I'm really glad that we've had all the different perspectives here as part of the discussion on why we think this is a really great budget, that with Don and Devin and adding to it. I think that's really good points. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
1 second. I want to make sure that people get to see the right version. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah. Here we go. So you see here the 6.2. I also wanted to make sure that people, why?
We can't see it, Laura.
Oh, sorry. Hold on 1 sec.
Laura, no hurry right now, but when you do, can you put the new one in our drive too? That folder?
Yes, I will.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
I apologize. I'm not sure what's happening because I thought I added just exactly what we. Becky, I will tell you, Julie and I have said multiple times, or to Julie today, Becky and I, that we've had quite a day and we're not sure. Excel wasn't working, our copiers weren't working, so bear with me a second.
Laura, one question here, and I would have
Yes.
raised my hand, but I can't find it on my screen anywhere. The last page that you showed that had the expenditures, anticipated revenues and tax rates and so forth, at the very top, I believe it read MVU School District. And I think it should read probably Missisquoi Valley School District. MVU only gets part of the blame for that, right?
Sorry, I was working on the tax rate page. Which document are you talking about, Jay?
At the page, there's one of the last pages that you showed in response to Devin's question at the very top. I believe it said at the heading, MVU School District.
Okay, I'll take a look at that.
And, okay.
Something. I apologize. 7, 1, 3, 6. Okay.
The part that I just want to add this, Laura. Oops, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but you always have everything so clearly outlined and so clear to the penny. So I'm really sorry you're having to go through this right now.
It's okay. I honestly, I figured out what happened. It's a previous version. And sometimes when we work in Dropbox, Becky and I are sharing a file and it looked like it reverted, my copy reverted back to something different, but I've got it now. So I appreciate your patience and thank you for that, Terry. You're always so supportive.
Laura, can you make it bigger?
Yes.
Thank you.
The good news is I do this so often that I can usually figure it out pretty quickly. I did want to.
The top of that form is what Jay's talking about. It does say MVU School.
Missisquoi Valley School District. Oh, here.
The U needs to go away.
Yeah, I'll fix that before we publish the book. I just wanted to bring your attention to just a couple other small changes on this tax rate page since last time. Last year's equalized pupil, when we actually approved your final budget, was not finalized yet as it was supposed to be. If you remember, our equalized pupil information came quite late last year. And so it did decrease slightly, which actually helped for our cause this year. So that did have a slight impact, but this number right here, the 182297, you may think that that's like one equalized pupil off, and that is true. That was a change. And also I wanted to just draw your attention to what the article language will say, which is that this is a spending per equalized pupil of 16,672, which is an increase of 9.21%. And so I just wanted to make sure that you'll understand that that is what the warning will reflect.
And what's really a challenge with that language is last year, our spending per equalized pupil actually decreased about 3%. From the previous year. So we were only able to look back 1 year at a time. And when you are trying to add to a low spending per equalized pupil budget, you end up with an increase, even when your tax rate information is going to be a decrease to your taxes. But that is the language we're required to put in our warnings.
It's a shame we can't put that net change in taxes in there because these numbers are even better than the ones we just looked at.
Yeah.
Franklin's a 1.2% increase and Swanton's about a 0.7% decrease.
And the equalized rate is actually a 6-cent decrease. So without the CLA impact, I mean, if you're just looking at the MVSD portion, I mean, it is decreasing significantly. We talked about ways maybe we could try to integrate some of that language like, oh, but we went down last year into the article. But
yeah, well, I think that's why it's important. It's important we talk about it now and when we do our communication videos over the next few weeks. So we'll just do our best.
Yeah. So I can pull up the warning if that helps, or if you want to approve a budget proposal first, and then we can move through those other items.
Yeah, I'd like to. We're in a motion right now, so I'd like to conclude that before we move on. Is there any more discussion?
Question.
Hang on. Laura, can you? Thank you. Perfect. I can see everybody. So I believe Peter was first, then Don.
I just wanted to, I know last year there was a lot of discussion about holdover funds and what we're planning to do with them, and we haven't had much discussion. I know probably a lot of it is going towards the project in Highgate with the new air handling systems we're putting in there, but I just was wondering what it looks like for holdover money.
And that's why I put a copy of a updated financial report, even though it wasn't on the agenda, in the shared drive for you. You are correct that our anticipated carryover, given those different scenarios, is down significantly. So our anticipated carryover is now for the current year. I just don't want to confuse the issue. It's about 2.8. That's down from just over 4 million from the last draft that you saw in November. There has been a slight revenue decrease of about 150,000, but we did the increase with the support staff pay that the board had just approved, did decrease that surplus by about 300,000. The approved track upgrades, the track and field upgrades that you approved at MVU, that was another 80,000. The special ed and student services lines have gone up a little bit with purchase services increasing, and the availability, I should say, or the fulfillment of some of our purchase services actually taking place. And then there's been a few changes in plant. So if you combine those changes along with the use of about 805,000 for the Highgate HVAC project as a supplemental piece funding source to the bond, we're down to about a $2 million carryover, or sorry, not carryover, projected surplus right now. So I just wanted you to have a new number, a good number to work with. It would not be my recommendation at this time, although it's obviously a board decision, but to look at an article or a separate article to kind of retain any of those funds, just because of the fact that we have the use of ESSER funding right now.
Thank you.
Don.
Yes, Laura, I was following your fact sheet and I'd seen numbers before, but on my screen, at least, I didn't see how the CLA impacted that. Was it not there, or was it there and I didn't see it on my screen?
It was probably at the bottom and then I scrolled up, Don. Did you want me to read that or show it again?
I just like to look at that because CLA is always a factor that people don't understand.
Okay, can you see my screen again?
Okay,
Yes.
Common level appraisal.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's this information down here, Don.
Yeah, I've got it. Okay, so in the final analysis, what does that do to each town? All right, Franklin. All right.
So Franklin would increase 1.7 cents. Highgate would be an increase of 1.4 cents. And Swanton would actually still be a decrease of just under a cent.
Okay, all right. Unfortunately, the CLA is going to become more and more of an impact factor. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree, Don. You can see over here how far below 100% we're falling in some of our towns.
It's a catastrophe throughout the state. I know 2 or 3 people where I do consulting work in southern Vermont, and they're just getting hit badly. You must hear that from your business managers.
Absolutely.
Okay, any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the FY23 budget for $41,050,423, which is an increase of 6.2%, raise your hand.
I'm saying aye, Chris, because I'm driving.
Motion carries 8-0. Thank you, Terry. Okay, next up is the town meeting day article warning. And Laura, if you could present that, I can read it.
Can you see that, Chris? Is it big enough?
No.
No.
That's better.
Oh, yep.
Oh, that's perfect.
Okay.
Okay. The legal voters of the Missisquoi Valley School District, consisting of the towns of Franklin, Highgate, and Swan, are hereby notified and warned to meet to transact the following business by Australian ballot in their respective polling places hereinafter named for each of the above referenced towns on March 1st, 2022 at the polling places and times hereinafter listed. Article 1, to elect from the legal voters of said district the following officers: a moderator for a term of 1 year, a clerk for the term of 1 year, a treasurer for the term of 1 year, an MVS school director for the term of 3 years from Franklin. Again, a director for 3 years from Highgate, and also a term of 3 years director from Swanton. Article 2, shall the voters of the Missisquoi Valley School District approve the school directors to expend $41,050,423, which is the amount the school directors have determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in educational spending of $16,672 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 9.21% higher than spending for the current year. Article 3, shall the voters of the Missisquoi Valley School District authorize the board of directors of the said school district to borrow money to pay current expenditures in anticipation of taxes and to sign notes for that purpose. Said persons and voters warned are further notified that voter qualification, registration, and absentee voting and voter procedures shall be in accordance with chapters 43 and 51 of Title 17 VSA. The legal voters of the school district are further notified that an informational meeting will be held virtually via Zoom on February 23rd at 7 p.m. for the purpose of explaining the budget items to the voters. The link to access this virtual meeting will be posted on the MVSD website and social media. The polling places and times consist of Franklin. Franklin uses the town hall, which is 5336 Main Street, Franklin, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Highgate is going to use the Highgate Sports Arena, which is 243 Gore Road, Highgate Center, also from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And Swanton will use the Swanton Village Municipal Complex, First and Elm Streets in Swanton, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to accept the article warning as read.
I think Steve raised his hand, Chris.
Yep, Steve's the first.
Chris, this is Terry. I'd be happy to second it.
Terry's the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the town meeting day article warning as read, raise your hand.
I say aye, this is Terry.
I think Peter's frozen because I've got, as of right now, I've got 7-0, but I don't have Peter's vote. And he hasn't moved in a while, so I think he's froze up. So at this time, the motion is carried 7-0. Okay, moving on to the approval of the town meeting day ballot.
Oh, I gotta admit Peter again there.
Do we have a copy of the ballot?
Yes,
there.
Laura,
Right.
if Laura puts it up. I just wanted to say that we still have time on this ballot, so it's not finalized. The deadline is not yet passed. We don't have to approve the ballot. It's just something we've done in the past few years. So I just wanted to make that point that the deadline is not yet finished.
Yes, so Chris, I'm not sure if you want to read this or just go through it, but basically Article 1 is the moderator position. We have Tim Magnan running as a moderator. For clerk, that's a 1-year position. Noel Gilbert is currently going to be running. Treasurer position for 1 year, Georgette Roddy is yet again going to be running for that position. School director from Franklin for a 3-year term, as we saw in the warning, is Peter Magnan. For the school director for Highgate, we actually do not have a current candidate. So there's a write-in option. That's a term of 3 years. School director from Swanton, that's a term of 3 years. We have a consent form from Donald Collins to run for that position. And then we have Article 2, which is your school budget article. Shall the voters of the Missisquoi Valley School District approve the school directors to expend $41,050,423, which is the amount the school directors have determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $16,672 per equalized pupil. This projected spending for equalized pupil is 9.21% higher than the spending for the current year. And then lastly, Article 3 that you saw in the warning, shall the voters of Missisquoi Valley School District authorize the Board of Directors of the said school district to borrow money to pay the current expenditures in anticipation of taxes and to sign notes for that purpose. And that's it.
Okay, so at this time, I'd entertain a motion to accept that town meeting day ballot. Don's the first. Steve's the second. Any discussion?
Oops, I have a question,
Devin.
Chris.
Oop, no.
sorry.
I'll get Devin, then
That's
I'll
okay.
call him Terry.
Perfect. Thank you.
I guess I'm just wondering what the purpose of approving it would be right now, given that we know we could get another consent form before Monday and we'd have to change the ballot. And I mean, the ballot would be changed at that point. Is this something we should just table or pass on at the moment?
Well, I wonder if you can just say that you approve the format of this. I mean, you approve the warning. You don't need to approve the ballot. It's just something that you've been doing since we merged. So there isn't a legal reason for you to approve the ballot. It's good for you to go through it. Maybe you accept it and it looks right to you. As opposed to we're approving this thing the way the warning has to be exactly just right. So it's an excellent point, Devin.
Okay, Terry, then Toby.
Yeah, that was what Devin just said is exactly what I wanted to say, because Highgate, what if someone shows up?
Okay, Toby.
Can we just approve it or change the motion to approve it and anticipation of no changes by Monday? But if there are changes, well, the motion doesn't carry. I don't know. Can we do that? I don't know. We've done motions like that in the past, I think years ago. I don't know how legal they are, but just a thought. But
Well, if we tabled this to our next meeting, I don't think we miss any deadlines or anything like that. And then we just
okay.
get past that date, that timeline. So.
And again, I agree with Julie. It's not a necessary motion. It's the warning that is very specific, but this is more just information. We've just been doing it since we merged, I think, in just transparency.
Would those who made the motion be open to amending it to say we accept the ballot rather than approve the ballot?
I think that was the motion.
Was
Devin.
it accept the ballot format?
Yeah.
I did say approve, so we would have to change accept, because that's how it's written on my agenda, so that's how I said it.
I have no problem doing that. Also, I'm going to ask Julie a question of Peter. Did they decide where you're going to hold your meeting?
They're deciding that tonight, but Peter's been doing a lot of communicating with the chair and select board, and they expect it to be at the town hall. Is that correct, Peter?
Can't hear you, Peter.
Is everybody frozen up?
No, Peter's having a hard time unmuting. No, I think he is unmuted. I'm not sure why we can't hear him.
Did they come to a conclusion, or are we gonna have to do something on that?
No, we shouldn't have to change it. At this point, they'll notify us if for some reason they did.
But if they do we have to do anything?
Yes, if they did, we would have a special meeting, perhaps virtually before our facility committee. And we would make that change to the warning itself. But I don't expect that change to be needed, given the communication that Peter has had with, and Laura as well, with the town of Franklin.
I'm
Can you hear me
perfectly
now?
willing to withdraw the
Yes.
motion.
Yeah, so I'm very confident after talking to Dave last night that they will use the town hall for the voting place. So I think we're gonna be all set.
Okay, so Don was willing to change his motion from approve to accept. Steve, do you second that? Okay, so the motion has been adjusted to accept the town meeting day ballot. Are we ready to vote? It's like we are. So all those in favor of accepting the town meeting day ballot, raise your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Okay, moving on under new business. Next up is our superintendent evaluation, and that would be a finding for executive session. I guess that would be contract issue or contracted. I don't know, what would that be under? Just evaluation? Is that a?
Yes, the evaluation of an employee and contract discussion is eligible for executive session.
Okay, so the finding would be employee evaluation and contract discussion. So moving on, that brings us to a leave of absence request.
So I, again, I don't want to go into an individual's personal circumstance in open session. I don't think there's a need to discuss it in executive session. We have an employee, a teacher who is a first-year teacher who is not eligible for FMLA leave. And that, so we would like the board to authorize a leave of absence and commit to pay her the employer share of her health insurance during that maternity leave. So we'd be looking for a motion to approve that leave of absence.
So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the leave of absence. Devin's a first.
I'll second that, Chris, and I have a question.
Don's second. Discussion. Go ahead, Don.
Julie, you said does not qualify for family leave?
An employee, to be eligible for FMLA, you need to be employed continuously for more than a year. So for a new teacher, they don't meet that criteria. So we have to, the experience is not, the board actually, by approving this leave, it is the same as FMLA essentially.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, I'm confused with that too. If by approving this, does that mean that we're approving all others moving forward? And I'm just trying to figure out what this vote is going to mean.
This vote means for this individual teacher, you're approving her maternity leave of absence. And
we're not
some of it
setting a
is
precedent.
No, we've done this very often for teachers who are not eligible for FMLA for one reason or another.
So if we turned it down, what would that mean?
That means you would not be paying for teachers' health insurance while they're on maternity leave, and that you would not be guaranteeing their return to their teacher after their sick leave is finished.
So is this a contract? Is that was it negotiated this way? That I'm just trying to figure out why we're having to do this, I guess.
Because FMLA protects most people in this circumstance. We don't have a separate maternity leave item in our master agreement because it's typically covered by FMLA. Occasionally, someone is not eligible for that because in this instance, the teacher is new and has not been employed for a calendar year. So when those circumstances arise, the board typically grants a leave of absence for the teacher because they want the teacher to come back next year and they want the teacher to have the appropriate maternity leave. That teachers use their sick leave, but then there's usually more. They're as a new teacher, they don't have the opportunity to accrue as much sick leave as, say, a teacher who's been here for 5 years or 10 years.
This is always a case-by-case basis too, because
Absolutely.
we've dealt with this in the past for different scenarios. Devin?
And Julie, is it correct that those eligibility criteria, that's based in federal law, correct?
Correct.
Not our negotiations.
Right.
Julie, just to expand on this, because it's been a while since we've had one. During that time of her absence, when she's not on paid sick leave, she does not accrue seniority either, does she?
No, not during unpaid time. And that would be the same under FMLA.
Right.
Can I just ask a question on this for clarifying? So what we're saying is we're going to make sure this teacher, and I'm assuming it's a woman since it's maternity leave, is going to have 3 months or something like that for maternity leave. Otherwise, there's no legal way for her to have 3 months.
No, so there's two
Yeah, I'm
parts to
messing up.
this. So I cannot grant somebody a leave of absence longer than, say, a couple of weeks, right? Only the board can do that. Usually you don't have to because FMLA is in place and then that is automatic. It doesn't require board action. So when somebody is not covered by FMLA for their individual circumstances, the board has to grant that leave of absence. And under FMLA, yeah. Is that?
Nope, we want her to come back right after she has the baby.
Well,
I'm being facetious.
I don't think that would be consistent with the board's policies of the past.
I think you're right.
Julie, I know you've gone round and round with this, but I just want to thank you because I do understand it much better now that we've talked it out.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All those in favor of approving the leave of absence, signify by raising your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. That concludes new business. Now we're gonna move on to old business. First up under old business is the food service management contract addendum.
So typically I'm not required or it's not necessary for me to approach the board with a food service management contract addendum in the middle of the year, but it is allowable by the state standards of the child nutrition program. But we were approached a month or so ago by the Pbis Food Service Group for our Highgate, Missisquoi, and Swanton schools, and looking to have a mid-year increase due to the food and supply increases, price increases, as well as maybe more frequent student absences and school closures due to COVID. And so their budget, of course, was not, when we approved their contract, the budget did not include these different items. And it has been such a significant increase to food prices that they've requested an increase to their contract. Marnie and I met with Tina Bushy from the Pbis, as well as multiple state reps to make sure that this was acceptable. And it does have to be something that is calculated and worked on and agreed upon and kind of negotiated with the food service management company along with the school district. And so those, we did work through that, but the Pbis is proposing that as of January 1st, so it would be retroactive a few days, that the lunch meals at Missisquoi Valley High School go from $2.85 to $2.90. That would be our per plate fixed cost. That price would remain in effect through June 30th, 22. That would be an approximate program increase for MVU of $33,000. For the Highgate Elementary program, the breakfast meals would go from $2.01 to $2.30. The lunch meals would increase from $3 to $3.35. Same thing, it would remain in effect through June 30, and that would be an approximate program increase of $11,000. For Swanton, that would be an increase of breakfast meals from $1.97 to $2.15. And for lunch meals from $2.95 to $3.20, with a additional cost of the program of approximately $12,300. I will say that I do know that there has been a significant increase to not only foods, but the availability of foods has impacted the price, as well as shipping and hauling costs of the food as well. I will also say that we are still operating under the summer food service program for all of our programs, which the reimbursement for that, which is much higher. It's actually over $4 than the national school lunch program that we typically operate under. And so our food service programs, as I've shared with you before, are carrying significant surpluses at this time. We actually just did a required financial report, and we're in the $600,000 surplus range. And I have come to the facility task force as well as the board looking to spend some of those funds down. But I do think that this addendum and the proposed increases are fair for the remainder of this year, given the situation as well as the financial status of our programs.
Don.
So Laura, I support this, but why would you go back to January 1 and how do you recoup that? I mean, it's based on what parents or children pay, right?
No, this is what we pay the Abby for the per meal price. This is not changing what parents pay. That would be another strategy. But I don't think that that's necessary.
I don't want that strategy. That's why I'm just trying to figure out.
No, this is we now pay for our meals with a food service management company on a fixed plate cost. And so the prices that I was outlining is the price that we would pay to the Abby for those meals. And the reason it's different across our program is 1, because of participation, 2, because of size, and 3, because of the offerings that our schools have. So I did want to clarify that as well, that the reason you're hearing a different rate that we pay per program is because of all those factors.
And I like the Abby's program and I want to support them, but I feel a little awkward on January 20th, passing something and saying it's retroactive. I'd feel more comfortable going forward, but we'll see what you get for a motion, who votes for it.
Well, Don, in response to that, we did ask those questions to the state. It is allowable to go retroactive to January 1st. And because of the timing, the approval process, and all the verification that we needed to do with the Agency of Ed, the Abby actually gave me these documents before the start of this month, but it's taken this long to get all the verification, work with the Agency of Ed, and then we had us to have a board meeting.
So you had the documents before January 1?
I did. Yep.
Okay.
But I did not feel comfortable with all the rules and regulations and compliance issues with the child nutrition program. I did not feel comfortable bringing them to you, not knowing if it was allowable, because this has never happened before.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first up, Toby, then Peter.
Never mind. I'm reading. I was looking for a total price, and it's on the sheet she sent us. So I got it. Never mind.
Peter.
Okay. Wondering, I know that Franklin doesn't have the Abby service, but obviously if food prices are going up, it must be costing them as well. Is there any, are we doing anything for them, or what are we hearing there?
So because it's not a food service, Peter, and their program is self-contained, they cover their own expenses. And so because the reimbursement rate is much higher right now, they're operating under summer food service as well all year, and there's waivers to feed everyone for free. So they're getting that reimbursement rate of over $4 for all kids right now. And so they're pretty cash flush as well, which is not typical with the Franklin program, but they can cover those additional expenses because of that additional reimbursement rate, the increase in the reimbursement rate. I mean, they're making those same investments on much needed kitchen equipment, repairs and new items. So we're in the same place with them, that we're reviewing those needs, and you've approved some things already. I'll be bringing another round of suggestions or proposals for those needs as well to utilize that surplus, but they're doing just fine right now.
Okay, thanks.
Financially, I will say they are working their little tails off for sure.
Any other questions or comments? Actually, I don't even think I've got us into we're not even in a motion yet. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to accept the food service management contract addendum. Peter's the first. Okay, Joanne's the second. Any discussion? Devin.
I guess I'm curious to know what happens if we don't approve this.
Well, I think probably the Abbey would continue to provide meals. I can't guarantee that, but we are in a contract with them now. I think it would be, given our relationship with the Abbey, the long-term relationship, and I think their reputation with us to this point, I think it is very reasonable for them to be making this request. And I think they did wait as long as they could throughout the year to make sure that it was necessary. I could wonder though, if the quality of our programs could be impacted. And I say that very carefully because I think that the Abbey would not do something to our programs intentionally or want to do that. But I think financially, it's been a struggle for them to meet their costs. And if they come to me and tell me that they're almost losing money on a program, then that's a concern, I think, as someone who does business with them on a long-term basis.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I had a similar question as Devin, and you answered it. Because I would, the flip side to it, I would be worried about, I mean, you kind of get what you pay for. So you go cheap, sometimes you get cheap. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the food service management contract addendum, please raise your hand.
This is Terry. Aye. Chris.
Motion carries 8-0. Okay, nope. Moving on, under old business, we move on to policies. And we have 3 warrant policies for adoption tonight. First one being admission of non-resident students.
So the board goals committee reviewed comments and made changes based on some of those comments. For this one, I think the most important change was ensuring that in an appeal process, again, this policy is for students, not school choice students, but students coming from towns such as Alberg or Georgia, where they do not operate a high school. And the process of appeal, should the school district deny a student admission for one reason or another, one of the allowed reasons. I thought it was a nice addition. I believe Peter suggested that we wanted to be very specific about the timeline of getting back, and that 30 days written notice was a little vague, and we wanted to make sure that not only was there time to have a board meeting, but also the board may need to consult with an attorney on something, so that after a meeting to hear an appeal, there would be a further 10 days to respond in writing to the appellant. So we wanted to make sure that was in there.
Okay, so at this time, I'd entertain a motion to accept the admission of non-resident students. Toby is the first. Joanne's the second. Any discussion? Terry?
Oh, sorry, I would just say aye.
Oh.
Sorry.
I don't see any discussion, so at this time, everyone in favor of accepting the admission of non-resident students, raise your hand. Motion carries 8-0. Next up is student self-expression.
Okay, similarly, the school board goals committee reviewed the input for this. There were a couple of changes that were made. One was to list school district social media on here as well. I think that was the only major change to this one. Anybody else from the committee have?
Do we want to say anything about the hate input or any of that kind of stuff?
We did have that. Thank you, Terry. We did have that input, but that becomes one of those difficult to, then a principal or a school board is then in charge of determining what hate is. So we believe that that is covered under the other federal protections. But it was very positive input.
Okay, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to accept the student self-expression policy. Toby's the first. Steve's the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the student self-expression policy, raise your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. And last but not least, educational support system policy.
So this one, again, was reviewed by the board goals committee. There was no comment on this one. And we would recommend it for adoption.
And that being said, I'd entertain a motion to accept the educational support system policy. Toby's the first. Joanne's the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the educational support system policy, raise your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. That concludes old business. We are now on to other business, and that would be negotiations updates. We met Tuesday night for the first time this year. We had met before the break. We were scheduled to meet a week before Tuesday, but due to illnesses and extreme cold and everything else, we postponed the meeting. And we met Tuesday night. It was a very positive meeting. I think we're close. If I was to, read the tea leaves, I think we're close to an agreement. There's still some issues we're working through, but it's been a positive interaction so far. I'm not sure if Terry or Joanne has anything else to add, but.
Chris, when's your next meeting?
Tuesday night. This coming Tuesday, which is the 25th, I believe.
Well, you're on
You
track.
did a nice job of
Yeah, you're on track to get a settlement before you retire.
Trying to. No, it's gone well. It's been a lot of discussion back and forth. It's been very understanding both ways. I think it's gone well so far. I mean, we're not done yet, so we'll see when we're done, but that's all I have. Okay, so next up, we have future agenda items. We're still going to try to bring the SRO. Obviously, we're going to still talk about budget. We have early college, proficiency, truancy, and facilities. I don't know if there's anything else somebody would like to have added. Seeing none, that's kind of what's on the agenda for now. Our next board meeting is February 1st at 6:30, be held virtually. And then we need to look at rescheduling our March meetings. By the way the calendar works out, kind of an easy solution would be just to move them all back a week. So instead of meeting, which would be, I believe, March 1st, meet March 8th, and then respectively move the second meeting to the 24th. And then that way you still have your meetings every other week instead of them stacked up.
Mhm.
I do believe we need a motion to move those.
I got a question. Well, yeah, we can make the motion. Go ahead. I got a question though.
So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to change the March meetings to March 8th and March 24th. Peter's the first, Steve's the second. Any discussion?
Chris, or Julie, what does a new board set the schedule every?
Yes. So the first meeting, this current board would set the very first meeting because we have to move it from town meeting day, and anybody voted in wouldn't have time to get sworn in because you would have 3 members not be able to attend if you did it that way.
Right. So okay, that's what I thought. So like, we're setting the next 2 meetings, which is fine for March, but at that first board meeting, the organizational meeting, we're going to lay out for the whole year, right? Is that how we did it?
Yes. What you'll do is you'll end up setting how many meetings a month, what days, and what time you start them.
Okay.
Typically what we've done, and by typically what as a Missisquoi Valley District Board, it's been like 3 times. So, but typically you have continued with the same schedule through June and then started in July with what the new board has decided, but the new sworn in board can do whatever it likes.
Yeah, we've done that in the past for consistency through this fiscal year. Because of the way the fiscal year works, we stay within those boundaries. That's the history. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of changing the March meetings to March 8th and March 24th, I would say at 6:30, just to be consistent, raise your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Unless there's anything else at this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session, and it would be board only. Nothing else. So at this time, we can go into executive session at 8:42.
Chris, you didn't make a motion.
I didn't.
No, you
Sorry.
didn't vote. Devin raised his hand, but
I'll make the motion to go to executive.
Robert raised his hand. Robert raised his hand.
Chris, just a point, L, if Julie is not in executive session, I need to make you the host of the meeting so that I'm not on.
Okay.
So that also means that you need to share the video that gets recorded to the cloud. So touch base with me.
I'll have to do that because I have no idea how to do that.
It should go automatically, but you've got my cell to call if you need to.
Okay. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session. Devin was the first, Terry was the second, and it's just the board. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of going into executive session, raise your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0.